Hi, I'm Karim Marucchi, CEO of Crowd Favorite, and today I'm really excited to have a conversation with Dan Drapeau. He is from DXP Catalyst, and he is one of the leading experts on talking about what's going on with the DXP space and the different content management systems that are out there. Dan, thank you for having this conversation with us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and DXP Catalyst?
Absolutely. Sure. So, I'm the founder and managing director of DXP Catalyst Consulting. It's a consulting firm I launched in late 2023, so about a year and a half ago or so. What I do is I provide DXP or digital experience platform advisory services, helping companies ranging from higher ed institutes to private equity backed consumer brands to upper mid market and small enterprise, helping them make informed strategic decisions about the right technology. And I take a vendor neutral approach to everything I do. My work really focuses on helping clients solve problems like CMS fragmentation, platform consolidation, solving for customer data and content silos, and also modernizing like platform and platform architecture. So at the core, my approach is really about optimizing martech ecosystems and helping clients select the right technologies.
Awesome. I'm curious when you mentioned CMS fragmentation.
Mhm.
What's that about? How does that happen within your customers' purview?
I see it most often in higher ed and public sector, but it really happens in all industries. It's a scenario that occurs where, let's say in higher ed, an institution has a number of content management systems that they're using. These are often vast, decentralized networks of websites. There could be hundreds of domains. So oftentimes, a business school or a med school might just have their own content management system, and they're on their own, you know, siloed platforms. So it's a problem of, if the company or institution wants like a unified platform strategy, what do they do? How do they deal with having six plus CMS solutions? And you see it in
Yeah,
public sector as well. And like CPG brands, when you think about them and they're growing via acquisition, each brand might be on their own content management system. So it creates a big problem over time.
I see. And then I guess on the other side of that are organizations that get stuck into these giant monolithic content management systems or
Right.
DXPs.
Yeah. So that really has to do with like kind of modernizing some of these companies that are on these antiquated monolithic solutions and getting them to something more modern. That doesn't necessarily mean composable architecture, but we'll be getting into that specific topic a little bit more. But getting them away from vendor lock-in in an ecosystem where everything in the kitchen sink is included in one single solution.
And that does get us closer to today's topic of talking about Gartner's magic quadrant for DXPs in 2025. So before we jump into that real quick, I always like to ask people, can you tell me the difference between basically a DXP and a CMS?
So a DXP is it's really a software solution that enables like organizations to create, manage, optimize, and orchestrate digital experiences across multiple channels. So I view it as like a centralized hub where there are tools provided for content management, personalization, customer data management, and like multi-channel delivery. So typically it should have some type of like cloud deployment, whether that's SaaS or platform as a service, and integration and orchestration capabilities. You typically also see other capabilities included. So that could be enterprise search, email marketing, and marketing automation, and e-commerce as well is pretty common. Then sometimes you see additional capabilities in there as well, like content marketing platforms. Those aren't always really included in DXPs, but there's a lot of different technologies that kind of um, fit right into what you would consider a DXP. A CMS is really just for managing content across multiple channels. Oftentimes it'll support like hybrid headless delivery across channels, but
Right.
A CMS is more like the underpinnings of a DXP in a way.
Right. And over the years, I don't remember how many years the DXP name has been around. I think it was what, 2014, 2015, if I'm right?
That sounds
Somewhere
about
around
right. Yeah, because
there.
the industry went from CMS to web experience management, then into DXP. So I think 2014 sounds about right when that term was coming about.
Over the years, it seems like it's been always CMS plus. But
Mhm.
as you mentioned, it went from sometimes e-commerce, sometimes really deep customer experience acquisition, sometimes customer retention. Really, it could go in almost any direction.
Right.
This year, though, in this year's Gartner's report, the discussion revolved around 70% adoption being mandated by 2026. I
Yes.
gotta tell you, that feels like it's begging for a question. What did you think when you read that?
Um, I was a little bit taken aback because it seemed ridiculous to me, to be quite honest. And I know a lot of vendors are kind of saying, we moved from CMS to web experience management to DXP to now composable DXP, and even I'm seeing intelligent DXP coming in as agents are kind of launching.
Right.
But yes, composable architecture is in, and a lot of enterprises are using it. But the figure of 70% seemed really extreme. So it's kind of making me question what audience are they like polling? Who are they getting that information from? Because when I have conversations with customers, granted, most of my customers tend to be upper mid market to small enterprise, not the biggest of the big companies out there, but a lot of them like don't quite grasp the difference between a DXP and a CMS. At least on the marketing side, most folks don't know what composable architecture is, nor do they care, right? They want the right solution for solving their problems efficiently. IT execs certainly are more aware of it, but the numbers seem kind of crazy to me, to be honest.
Right. It does feel like it's feeling almost vendor pushed. Who are they asking this
Yeah,
to? Because when you say it's a mandate, speaking to the
it's a strong
CMOs I
term.
speak to, right? Speaking to the CMOs I speak to and the CIOs that I speak to, they're they're not mandating a technology. They're
Right,
looking for a business solution. They're looking for
exactly.
outcomes and KPIs. And that really brings me into the idea of do we think that this is coming from the vendor marketing or sort of a broad cross section of enterprises? I think it's really coming from um, the vendors trying to really push early adopters and really trying to understand how they can broaden their market horizontally.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's more vendor pushed. Though there probably is a certain section of enterprise organizations that are all about composability. I did attend like the Mach 3, the Mach Alliance event in New York last summer. Well, that's kind of to the extreme end of it, where a lot of those companies, like a Kraft Heinz, for example, are pushing composability. But I think in the majority of cases, with smaller companies and mid market, that is not the case. So I think it's vendor push more than anything.
I would agree. And I mean, I think the great example I have is I have a friend who's a very well known surgeon in our area and has multiple practices. And they're using a martech solution made specifically for that medical space that is EMR plus martech plus this plus that. And it
Mhm.
just feels like these systems are getting more and more and more horizontal without going any deeper vertically. Like
Right.
the hype right now is AI. And they're saying, oh, we're going to have AI agents that are going to help you use our platform better.
Mhm.
Well, they're all within just the data of the platform. They're not looking at the overall business. They're just looking at the data within that one platform. So
Right.
the idea of composability gets completely watered down
Hmm.
because if you actually wanted to have a true composable system, you'd have different um, sort of AI agents for different parts of what you're interacting with. And that's really not how the enterprise wants to move forward with compatibility. I feel like we were sold in our sort of vendor world of implementation system integration, composability meant we could pick the best of breed in all the categories and they should work together.
Right.
But we're finding that some vendors are even starting to restrict APIs to do that anti-churn motion.
Hmm.
So they're talking about composability in a very different ways. So are you seeing full scale transformation? Are you seeing phased adoption? How are you seeing like this come across?
I would say more like phased adoption. I think for the biggest companies out there, composability is like a long term goal. So they start with like modernizing key areas. Maybe that means like decoupling personalization from a DXP they're using, right? I love using the example of like Sitecore XP, contains content management system, personalization, analytics, email marketing, like not being dependent on a single solution, starting to decouple it and maybe introducing a separate personalization engine, for example. I think on the far side of it, what you see is more if you're looking at like companies that are using like mock technology already or transitioning to mock solutions, I should say, like they're on SAP Hybris and they're moving to commerce tools. Well, that's a little bit of a different case because they're trying to like replace capabilities incrementally, like swapping out the shopping cart functionality from Hybris with a microservice from commerce tools. I think for composability, right, it's under like mock principles, but components are more like platforms and tools. So I think it's more about like a gradual decoupling of solutions, enabling APIs, that sort of thing, than
Hmm.
companies just doing a full scale transformation all at once, because that's often not practical. So, along the same topic here of what we're actually seeing, is it a phased adoption or full scale transformation? Just kind of wondering what your agency is seeing, when you're helping enterprise organizations. Are companies taking like a phased approach, or is it like a big bang, full transformation all at once?
Well, actually, we see both things. At the very beginning of sort of the craze of DXP pre-pandemic, there
Hmm.
were a lot more CapEx projects where people were saying, we want to do one big bang. Let's do a complete composable setup from day one.
Yep.
And then, since the pandemic, we've started seeing more OpEx or more, let's see how we can phase things. Let's create a 3-year project that
Hmm.
we want to move forward in innovating, but also with the high speed of CDPs and AI and everything that's changing so quickly,
Hmm.
first party data, they're saying, let's just do a 3-year approach where we're constantly sandboxing things and we're constantly trying to figure out what's best of breed and
Hmm.
keep things as composable as possible. So if a new option comes up, we don't have to refactor everything. How do we create a solid core that lets us do something in a phased approach?
Right.
Um, those are the people who are being more conservative with their budget, but asking us how do we keep up with innovation and not get locked into one solution long term.
Makes sense to me.
All right. So next, I was thinking that let's talk about the term composability versus what's actually happening out there. As we were talking about earlier, we've been sold this idea of things being composable or creating orchestration layers. Um, are vendors living up to the hype?
Um, some are, some aren't. I think One thing that jumped out at me with the Gartner report again is not just that mandate of them saying 70% of companies will be required or mandated to, take on composable DXP technology, but they actually added composability as a requirement, for a DXP in their rankings to meet. And frankly, only like a handful of platforms are actually composable. Like Optimizely, Squiz, Uniform, but I think the vast majority actually aren't. You could look at Psychor, for example. It's certainly marketed as a composable DXP. They made all their acquisitions of a SaaS to form a SaaS ecosystem a few years ago, but like it doesn't embody the openness and vendor agnostic flexibility that's really central to what I consider to be true composability. It's really still like a tight coupling of products, and there's no unified hub or interface for managing all the tools. So like you have to manage business users have to manage like multiple UIs. To be fair with their SaaS portfolio, their XM Cloud or their SaaS CMS solution, you can access CDP and their personalized product from there, but like users are still redirected to separate interfaces for like deeper configuration. OpenText is another one. Still kind of surprised to even see that on the rankings, but like that is a very tightly integrated ecosystem. Everything's tied to their broader ecosystem. So it's like a closed loop DXP rather than like a flexible, composable solution.
What I'm hearing you say is that some of them are calling it composability, even if all it means is we have 8 different features and you can turn them on and off separately. That's
Right.
their
Or
idea of composable,
basically,
right?
or, these products have APIs, so therefore it's composable.
Right. But as we know, saying you have an API and having that API be complete enough to actually get data in and out are 2 different things. Thank you again for this great conversation around the 2025 Gartner DXP Magic Quadrant. I'd like to invite everybody to go to DXP Catalyst and subscribe to Dan's newsletter and follow up with Crowd Favorite on our website for more insights. We look forward to continuing the conversation online. Please feel free to get a hold of either one of us with any questions. Dan, thank you.
Thank you, Karim.